And where we really want to start today with our first session is, I think, in one of the most important places. We want to begin with the data. We want to begin with really how the industry can leverage and use the huge flow and stream of information, of course, that is coming across connected plants and manufacturing, and use that to increase flexibility and scalability in the industry, which is why I'm very glad that we can start with such an interesting and dynamic panel of experts to talk around this phase of digitalization in manufacture, putting data at the heart of Europe's manufacturing evolution. It really, to me at least, it speaks directly to the motivating points that I talked about before: speeding time to market, increasing flexibility, and of course, at the same time, maintaining quality, reducing errors, etc. Opportunities in factory planning and layout, in AI, in future planning and product planning as well. And to do that, we've assembled some really great experts here to join us on a panel and share information with you. The discussion will be interactive. We're pretty minimal slides here, so I'll have lots of questions, but I hope as well that the audience will join in. So with that, I'd like to start welcoming to the stage our guest. Our first expert leader is leading Audi's data analytics and AI in production, responsible for data production analysis and data governance, and also taking responsibility for some new areas we'll hear about soon in a production data factory. He's been with Audi since 2015 across various roles in assembly and digital assembly, and previously worked for Mercedes-Benz and also in F1 areas in the UK. I'm very pleased to welcome Rudiger Echt, Director of Data Governance and Analytics for Digital Production from Audi. Rudiger, can you join us on stage? Also joining, hi, great to have you here.
Morning.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. Also joining, a leader in global strategy in manufacturing and supply chain at Amazon Web Services, supporting digital transformation across manufacturing and logistics in the automotive industry and beyond. Was previously also on the e-commerce side of Amazon, which I think will give us some interesting discussion points coming up very soon, including in areas like export, cross-border, and has previously held roles in supply chain and production at OEMs and suppliers like Toyota and TVS. Very pleased to welcome Kartik Krishnamurthy from Amazon Web Services. Welcome, Kartik.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. And because we are a hybrid event and we are a hybrid industry, our third panelist is connecting virtually to us due to an inability to travel this week. So we will also be joined virtually from England. He has responsibility across technical areas in production at Plant Oxford in quality and maintenance, and he's also held roles across maintenance, welding, and joining. He's played a key role in a very interesting data project that we'll hear about shortly that BMW was part of in terms of sharing information on welding, on the Weld Zero project. There you are. You can see him there coming to us from Oxford. Timothy McGrath from DFW Mini at Plant Oxford. Great to see you, Tim.
Morning, all.
Tim is one of the few who can still be distracted by football, I think, this week. But we'll leave the football discussion, I think, there. To be honest with you. So welcome again to our panel. So the format, as said, we will be Q&A. We'll share some information along as we go. I hope you as well engage with us too. But I'd like to just kick off by getting a bit of a better understanding for our audience about how some of our experts here are using production data analytics and even artificial intelligence in your manufacturing operations. So Rudiger, if I can start with you, can you summarize some of the key use cases and pilots that you're seeing and using at Audi?
I think the number one key use case is getting to use data itself. So I think that's the major challenge, I think. The use cases, normally, they just tend to develop relatively quickly once we've got access to the data. So that's probably our biggest challenge. We have the obvious ones, I think. We're in manufacturing, but we are responsible for also the planning part. We're responsible for the logistics side and the building side. So the obvious use cases you have is, from a building perspective, energy management, energy efficiency. There's a lot of regulatory requirements to better understand how you use your energy, what you use it for, where's the lack in the numbers, do you understand your consumption? There's regulatory requirements that have just, I think, last year increased massively. So that's one point. And a lot of energy obviously goes into the building infrastructure that we have. Then we have obviously things like quality control. So we have a lot of ICV use cases or start having a lot of ICV use cases, but we've got a few now that are developing to really, show what they can do. And once you start going to these things, then you understand better and you investigate further, and then you get to this point where you say, should we really dig deeper or should we start another one? So we have quality things. We then have obviously condition-based maintenance approaches, I should say. We have nothing yet at scale, really. And surprisingly, because I used to run the maintenance department before that, that is also because the machines just don't fail as often as you probably would want them to from a machine learning point of view. So we really struggle to get failure data. And then it's just what we tend to find is that by understanding the data behind our equipment better, that is a use case in itself. So you understand the setup of the machine, the maintenance engineers will start to better look into the processes, be better prepared, and hence there's like a holistic improvement. And yeah, I think probably one of the things that we also, I think our colleague from BMW started into is the things that are the low-hanging fruits, I would say, is like you look at the bolting technology because you've got a lot of nut runners, bolt drivers, screwdrivers, so you have very good data there. Then you go into the welding process, which you have obviously in the body and white shop, you have just massive numbers, and it's good data. It's accessible, and yes, we have use cases that we have rolled out and that are very profitable from the side where we've rolled it out, and we're just about to just scale that up. Yeah, we're using our platform that we started a few years ago with Amazon, and it's working okay, I would say.
So, well, I mean, I guess on the one hand, we should be glad that there's not that much fail data, as you say, but starting to build, it sounds like the basis to go further on this. Maybe I'll turn next to Tim at BMW. Can you give us a sense of some of the use cases that you have for data analytics and machine learning right now?
Yeah, so as mentioned previously, we're looking at a project called World Zero, which was giving us an analysis of all of our data and how we actually can use it in a better way. So we have so much data come out of the body shop that it's picking the correct information to be able to work with it. And we've had some spin-offs from it where we've been looking at energy consumption, and one of our biggest energy costs is our compressed air. So we've done quite a lot of work on that, which has saved us a considerable amount. We've managed to then roll out to the rest of the BMW group, and it's trying to get the correct data in the correct format. And one of the examples is that I might call an apple, but someone else might call it a fruit, and it's being able to get that in the right format for everyone to be able to understand. And that's our biggest challenge at the moment, is where we have this data is it is called different things, and trying to get it into a correct format that we can then analyze and be able to look at repeatedly is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we face at the moment.
So yeah, again, I think the parallels there, it's not the issue about the quantity of data, it's the issue is often around standards and formatting and getting to actionable insights, what's really meaningful and actionable. And that's where I want to turn to you next, Kartik, in terms of how are you working with customers, as we've just heard, like Audi, Volkswagen, others, not just to collect that data, but to turn that into actionable insights in the production.
Yeah, totally. I'll just start off with AWS for automotive, like what that is, and I'll just jump into manufacturing and what we're hearing from our customers. So AWS for automotive, last reInvent is one of the events that we have, yearly event, where we talk about ongoing activities with our customers. and launch new services and solutions. So during the last reInvent, we launched this initiative called AWS for Automotive, which what essentially that means is we are bringing our purpose-built solutions, services, the partner network that we have built for solutions, and the expertise that we bring working with customers such as Volkswagen, BMW, and others. So bringing all that into one single go-to-market messaging so our customers can easily understand what is AWS doing in this space when we talk about manufacturing, supply chain, and many other verticals. So when I say verticals, these are something that we call as strategic workloads. And there are 8 areas where we focus on that our customers tell us is the most important for them right now. So those are software-defined vehicle, ADAS AV, connected mobility, digital customer engagement, product engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, and sustainability. Now, in this, customers such as Audi, BMW, Continental, Daimler, Toyota, Honda, so we have been working with them in these 8 areas already for the past multiple years. And now what we are starting to do is bringing experts from industry over to AWS who can bring the challenges that the automotive customers are facing. And that is informing how we build solution services, and that is built to the industrial grade. So that's the AWS for Automotive, which makes it all easy and under one umbrella for everyone to look at. Now, in this, you're already seeing that manufacturing and supply chain are 2 workloads that we focus on. So we are hearing from our customers that they are right now in a journey. If you draw a maturity graph, they are right now in a journey where either they are trying to gather data from disparate data silos, which has its own machine communication protocols. How do you go beyond that and start gathering all that data together into one single source of truth? And there are many other customers who have started gathering that data, but then what do you do with the data? And how do you start seeing insights that are meaningful, that drives some ROI for the plant or for the leaders who are trying to get results out of it? So we can draw a maturity graph around this. And what we have done is, with our experience working with customers such as Volkswagen, we have introduced industrial-grade services for computer vision use case. We have something called as Lookout for Vision, which is a service that we introduced. And what that does is, with just 30 images, you're able to provide good or not good, and automatically modeling happens in the backend, so you don't invest a lot of data scientist energy into it or resources into it. So we are trying to make it easy for the customers. So once you start gathering the data from cameras or machines for lookout for equipment is something, it's a service for predictive maintenance. So like that, we are introducing services that makes the journey to build on the use cases that were mentioned a little more easier. And we are working with our partners to leverage these services that we have built and their expertise of already working with automotive customers to bring all this together and can the solution so that can be quickly deployed at our customer's place. So multiple different initiatives going on, but starting from data gathering and then bringing the analytics portion on top of it with 2 different categories, one around Industry 4.0 and one around application modernizations. So Industry 4.0 are those use cases that were spoken of. So those are some of the activities that we are involved in.
Okay, great. And as we've heard, we've alluded to there's some obviously areas in production that provide tons of data in these areas, and we've alluded to the project that Tim worked on at BMW on the Weld Zero. And so, Tim, maybe we can turn back to you on this and talk a bit more concretely about some of the outputs and learnings from that project. And I think you have a few results that you can share with us too on that.
Yeah. So we worked on a project in collaboration with a number of other companies. There was companies from welding, companies from data analysis, and universities as well. And it was across a broad spectrum of welding. So not just resistant spot welding, but also we had deep sea welding for pipelines and bits and pieces. And from our perspective, we were trying to work on a flexible sort of Industry 4.0 platform that allowed us to look at the data to be able to give us the repeatability and also the cost savings. So we analysed how we carry out our welding and went straight right down to the bare bones, picked on our key influences of what give us our biggest issues, and we then looked at the data. So one of the things we looked at was the way we dress our caps, and we've been investigating it and for a while, and we've come up with a solution of using our existing tooling with new software for the robots, new software for the weld controllers, and then new software for our guns, which allowed us to improve our consumable use of our weld caps, and it was a considerable cost saving. So we're currently 50% rolled out in the body shop. It's more around 60% now, but it gives us an average yearly cost saving of about £200,000, which is quite a significant amount. We were looking, as I spoke earlier, about our compressed air. So we looked at how we use our compressed air and what levels we have coming in, and we sort of managed to achieve a considerable cost saving, which is even more so now with the cost of energy. But just by simply looking at how being more clever with what we do and looking at how many compressors we need and whether they're all needed and bits and pieces. So that gave us another considerable cost saving. And then the exciting one was working alongside ATS as our data, Lancaster University and the Welding Institute. We looked at our actual welding data that we have coming out, and we managed to create an algorithm that gave us a 93% accuracy in a blind test, which was we were expecting nowhere near that level, and some of them were able to give us 100%, and it managed to predict some of our failures that we see on a regular basis, such as a weld that's not quite aligned correctly, or we have a weld that might be near the edge of a panel. And using this, we managed to detect, using the data we already had, all of the actual algorithm behind it to be able to display this, and then in a real term we could display it to an operator. And it was a very exciting finding, which we weren't expecting to get out of it, and it was a good outcome for all of us.
Thanks, Tim. So obviously great, interesting results there. Rudiger, I thought, is this parallels for Audi, for other initiatives that you're working on? And I know maybe that also leads into the new role that I alluded to, that the production factory, the data production factory, is maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about that too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said, I think we've got similar use cases. I think our focus is not entirely on analytics. It's important what you do with the data, but I think there's an understanding that if you really want to become a data-driven organization, you need to put data at the heart of it, and you need to really look at your informational model that you've got in the business. And obviously information is being shared across different verticals in the company, and that makes it difficult. So part of our job is to also understand how that information model would look like for all of, it's not only manufacturing, it's also planning, it's also the logistics process around, the building process around, and also the interconnection with sales, with development, and so forth. So we're trying to come up with this data governance approach, if you wish, which wants to, our target really is data consistency throughout the different services that we're developing. So for us personally, that's almost more important than the actual analytics use cases we're developing, which is almost like just a windfall. And I think we will see many more, and they will be more on the horizontal level rather than a concrete use case. I think it will help you to move to a position where you better understand the entire business and you can run a business across different verticals, and that's not possible at the moment. We do that. So when you order a car and we deliver it, we run a process, but understanding the entire process and also the interaction, how good and bad you run that process, that's not very well understood. So I think that's where a lot more of the efficiencies. Now, talking about the data factory that you've mentioned, we obviously, Audi has many factories, and we have a lot of equipment and a lot of processes that constantly tend to change. The product changes regularly. The variance is high, similar to all other, I think, premium OEMs. I think the same situation. So your environment changes on a day-to-day basis. So we think that if you want to attack the data problem, you can't act as if you're a planning department that looks at it and says, okay, we think of a process, and then we capture the data, and then we develop a piece of software, and then we roll it out, and somebody else is going to look after it. If it's okay, then it's okay. If it's not okay, then they call us and we look into it. It takes a week and we fix it. So our idea is that, it's not an idea, it's really something that we're doing now. We have, a DevOps approach. So we have people, we're running product teams, and those product teams are responsible for the development and the operation of this particular IT or a data service, if you wish. And we have a 3-shift control center, for example, that looks after the automated processes that we operate with our AI solutions. That's something that we're ramping up. I'm not saying we're there yet, but we have the clear commitment in the business. That's our way forward. The more we automate in the business, and obviously across the globe, and as the more information is being more consistent, it's getting more consistent, then we have a good chance, I think, to scale up globally rather than, having a local control center on every site and trying to fix the organizational problems that you've got with it. And obviously, if you use your apps on your smartphones these days, you're used to, you have an interaction. I hope the developers of those apps use their apps every day, and they say, this is not good. And if you don't do that, then how do you know that your ICV solution, that your use case in practice is really doing well? And that's the basic idea behind it. So it includes the data governance, and it includes the development of those applications, the performance measurement of those applications, and it includes the 3-shift troubleshooting, if you like. So it could be anything like some sensor is flawed, or the camera is shifted, or the product has changed, or somebody has done a wrong configuration of some parameters overnight and it's just not working. And so we think that if you don't do that, then you don't get the trust in the business that what you actually roll out is actually good. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy not to work. But it's quite a tedious process. I'm not saying we're there by no means.
Yeah, I'll just add that, so BWDPP, right? So
digital production platform.
Digital production platform. So there was a strategic collaboration that was announced between AWS and Volkswagen, where we will help Volkswagen connect shop floor machines and assets to the cloud. And this is like a multi-year project that happens where we start from one plant and go across hundreds of plants of theirs and start connecting the machines and assets beyond the legacy protocols and whatnot to the cloud. So the approach that was taken there was to decouple data ingestion piece and analytics piece. So data ingestion is going to bring in all the data from the machines to the cloud, and then product teams, as mentioned, work on building applications on top of that ingested data so that you're able to go more faster towards analytics piece. So, and I totally agree that processes, mechanisms, it's all very different when it comes to every plant. And we have seen cases where 2 plants that are right beside each other, same station, same application, but completely different. So there is no single formula that fits everywhere. But then how can we fasten that process by making the data available, and then what kind of mechanisms need to be put in place? So Volkswagen works a lot with our partners, such as MHP, Teradata, XL2, or Sina.os. So there are multiple different partners that they work with, and they're able to quickly deploy for different business use cases that they have around the analytics piece of things. One such example that I would like to highlight is road test predictor. So what they did, they started gathering. So the problem statement is that every single car that is manufactured in the Portugal plant of Volkswagen has to go through road test. And there are some set of parameters that they check when the car goes through the road test. So how can we start checking for that apart from multiple other, like 20,000 different parameters across the production value chain? So, okay, across the production value chain, so that now by the end of the line, when the car is coming in and you have to make a decision for road test, the data is modeled way beyond the actual parameters that are checked at a road test, and we are able to get that accuracy rate high and say that, yes, this car need not have to go through a road test. So now you have data backing, much more data than what you would essentially look at when it comes to parameters, and that is going to give you potentially a pathway to say, hey, you can move this to the distribution centers and to the customers in terms of next steps. So now the results that you get is improved productivity and impact to sustainability as well. So that's a good example that on Volkswagen that I just wanted to mention.
So, but what's interesting, I think, coming out of what you both say, is the cultural change as well that this sort of requires. I mean, because to capture this layer, moving across all departments, and today at this event we will also have sections on paint shop and sections on this, but so but this is a cultural change, I imagine, that needs to happen at Audi as well.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I just wanted to add why we call it a factory, because obviously we want to also encourage people from the shop floor to develop into this field. And I think it's scarier, if you wish, that if you've got this data analytics department, it sounds very complicated and all data scientists, and it's not for me, and I can't go there, and it's like more difficult to convey to the business what we're trying to achieve. So that's why we call it a factory, because we want to encourage people, and that's what's happening across the shop floor business, to develop into this kind of area, and because there's some things that you can perfectly do on a shop floor level. So you can start, how do I train an algorithm, how can I troubleshoot an existing AI solution, and you start, and some of these people they just find out by working with these things that, wow, okay, I'm really good at this, and and I think the learning patterns also change. So that's one of the motivations why we call it a factory. And but I think the change that's required is not so much within the people that want to develop analytics use cases. It's more the understanding that basically everything will radically change within the business, how you drive processes, but to benefit from it, it requires a huge step, and you're never as fast as you want to be, so you're always lagging behind, and then it's kind of that's the challenge. I think it's well understood. So if you go to everyone in the business, yes, we want to become data driven. That's really important. But then when you go into what it means, and then I think that's probably 90% of my job, is to convince people that this is the right thing to do, and that's how we do it. It's not so much actually looking into the actual data, and we've got really good people that look into data and love it, and I personally love it too, but hardly get a chance to do it.
Yeah. Tim, obviously if I can maybe turn back to you, and because you use the example from the World Zero, but you obviously also then roll that into other BMW factories. There are clear efforts to connect across departments too. Can you maybe give us a sense of how you see the data analytics roadmap for BMW's production? Obviously, in your case, in Oxford, but I'm sure that connects across the group as well.
Yeah, very similar to Audi. We've been using people from the shop floor to go into the data roles. So our lead for Oxford is a maintenance person that's come from that background. So he's working on our smart maintenance, our development of looking at the data, and also then it helps it to sell the pitch to the actual people on the shop floor that are going to be using these tools and inputting the data in. So by having that connection, it makes it a lot easier. And I think one of the things that we can all agree is that a lot of people don't like change, and so trying to get that change across is key to getting better use from the whole platforms. And we're working quite successfully now. It took quite a while to get people on board, but we do have a lot of input now with our different tools that we're using for recording our breakdowns, for recording ordering parts from our stores, and the whole system sort of works together now, using the data which we can then analyze to see from the breakdown what parts have we be using more often, what bits are breaking down, what bits of equipment do we need to put our focus on. And it goes back to the point of it's all about the naming convention, which is where we're at the moment, is trying to get everything similar so that you can search for it easier to use the data. And that's across the whole BMW group, that it's a sort of planned rollout. And so we have localized teams in each plant, and then we have heads that will then be the key go-to user that will then talk to the other plants to make sure we are all working the same, and that we're not all working on separate agendas, that there's one sort of goal that we're all aiming for our roadmap.
I mean, translating and standardizing this data has already been identified as a topic, and just again, maybe a flavor at Audi and also from AWS on the DPP is that partly what the DPP is helping to do, for example, to standardize this information and help it be shared more easily across your plants, your suppliers, and perhaps at some point even more widely?
Yes, of course. I mean, a well-organized service landscape is obviously very helpful. And I think that's part of our approach as well. So there are services that are being offered by the DPP. There are services that obviously are more business focused and more business specific that do not exist. And rather than developing systems, we have an approach where we want to develop services, small, reasonably tailored services based on what we call a capability map, a CAP map. So we have divided the entire production business into capabilities and broken them down into about 150, I think, and then we break them down, and there are some AI capabilities in there as well, but we have some really not AI ones, like how do you want to interact with a machine, for example, how do what information you want to send across, and these types of services. But and then obviously we have the more technical services. How do we actually physically connect? What's the protocol? OPC UA, MQTT, and these types of things. But that's all reasonably well developed. I wouldn't say that that's our core problem. It needs to be done, and IT, I don't personally think is the problem, is the issue. I think it's really, we think you need to have a data strategy. So it's not so much about IT, it's what do you want to do with the data? And when you talk to people, they would say, I want to use this data here in my process, and I want to do a prediction for the breakdown of this machine. But that doesn't help you because you don't want to develop a use case for this particular person. So what you really want is, you want a data strategy. What do we do with machine data, maybe robot data across the business? And that's really where the challenge is. So getting the business to commit to a data strategy in its entirety, and also what use cases globally they want to have, I think that's more the challenge. And then the protocol and the technical issues, I think these technologies are well developed. And so, yes, we have those issues and those siloed data, but I think there's virtualization and a lot of good other technologies that help you to overcome it.
Yeah. I would just add that I totally agree that it's my personal opinion that the business and IT, they need to be very closely aligned when it comes to all this data strategy and what to do and how to do it at scale. So with DPP, there is a lot of ongoing effort where we have started pulling all the data from machines and assets, but then the adoption will increase as the business folks come together and understand what is priority for them at a plant level, and what can be repeatable in what is being built that can be leveraged across the board in a standardized fashion. So that's an active effort that I'm currently talking to customers, and I see them tell us, how do we take them through this journey, like AWS takes them through the journey, where business and IT starts working together. Business priorities are rolled into the IT when they are thinking around all these things. That's one thing. And and in the Volkswagen mix, I will also add BMW to it, the Cloud Data Hub initiative with BMW. I personally see that right now more than 20 million cars are connected, where data is going back to the Cloud Data Hub that BMW has, and which is powered by Amazon, AWS, of course. And we see that data being leveraged from the perspective of fault signals and other connected aspects of things, which also kind of roll back to the production side, where it can inform if there is some high-level production line issue that they need to be taken care of. So there is that level of linkage coming through. And the way Cloud Data Hub has been designed for BMW compared to Volkswagen DPP, all these are great strategies. For BMW, the way it works for them, they've created a very unified self-service data platform, which is very decentralized, and in a way that if paint shop in the Spartanburg plant of BMW wants to create a digital twin for the paint shop process parameters like entry volume, exit volumes, and OEE, pass rate, and whatnot, they will start collecting that data, and the team that is handling that, whether it's BMW with a partner and AWS or whoever they're working with, they will get provisioned AWS account that will directly connect with the Cloud Data Hub, and they own that whole structure of creating the data. So there's a data consumer and data producer aspect of it coming into the picture. So they have taken a little different approach, which works for them, of course. But I personally believe that being clear about business outcomes and tying it back to a data strategy is really important as we think through this.
I think there's if I can pick up on that, you mentioned data products. I think consumers and producers, I think that's a good aspect worth mentioning. So we come from a landscape where everything was distributed across the business. Now we're starting to, I think, centralize certain functions within manufacturing, production. And what we call a data product is not only the analytics product, no, not a use case, it's the data itself. So well-defined, structured, managed, quality-driven data is for us as a data product. And I think maybe in a few years we'll find that that approach is too slow. And then but once you've organized it, then you will decentralize it again. But you need that initial centralization approach, I think, to organize the business. And then you move to a state where you have data producers, and they own a data product, which is an unusual aspect for the business today, because people will own their personal data, but not let's say rework data or road test data as a whole, right? As a whole for the entire business. To define these producer roles, it's very difficult, but that will be one point. And then you will have consumers on the other side that will work with the data, and there is a clear data mesh between them. So that's, I think, in the years to come, but in the moment we're still trying to get to a point where we get people to understand what data products are in the first place.
Excellent. Well, as we come into the last few minutes of the discussion, and I know we've just scratched the surface, but looking ahead to the change and transformation that the industry is going in production, and as we'll talk about in the next sessions, and particularly our next session, we talk about battery as well. How do you see your data strategy informing the transformation of production? So if we take Audi, for example, integrating new platforms and electric vehicles into brownfields, elsewhere looking at greenfields. Tell us a little bit about the role that your team and this cultural change you're talking about will play.
Well, back in 2019, the business decided to do a big restructuring in production. So about 45,000 people all moved into new roles and responsibilities. And part of that was to centralize what we call the digitalization for production. So that includes all the data aspect. We obviously see from the product perspective, we see a lot more data coming through the product, and obviously a lot more life cycle management and constant regulatory requirements that require us to provide this data, that data. Obviously also our ESG requirements, so all the sustainability approaches. How do you trace? How can you document how much CO2 footprint you produce and so forth? The regulatory requirements tend to just, I don't know, it's certainly not linear. I think it's exponential. For example, the battery pass that's just about to come out in the EU, but also in China and other countries. You need to really document through the entire supply chain. So I think our understanding is more and more that you accompany the entire development process from a production point of view. So historically, we kind of kicked in when, say, maybe 3 years before the start of production. But I think that will change. And you will start developing those information models as you go along, and that will allow you to better predict the outcome of your development process. So I think production will take on a new role much earlier, but not more intense. I think just earlier with better prediction models on what's going to happen. So, and in my perspective on that is that if we don't do this and if we're not successful with this, it's not going to be possible to win the race. It's just, this is the #1 challenge. And I think that's widely understood in the business. And it's not only production, the engineering people do the same thing. Obviously, they have what they call a group engineering platform, and they have data at the center, and they do the same things. But it will still take a few years, but I think we will see some good results from that.
If I can, so I see 3 things. So first is something that we are doing with Northvolt. Northvolt is a Swedish battery manufacturer. And what they're doing is they have introduced a concept called cloud factory module. So what that is a digital blueprint of an architecture that they can use as a reusable way for going and deploying new factories. So they have built an architecture blueprint that has the Industry 4.0 aspects built into it, like product traceability, OEE, or quality defects and whatnot, tied into the overall system architecture level blueprint. So that way, if tomorrow BMW is asking Northvolt, hey, I need a battery manufacturing plant, they quickly are able to answer to it. So I see that evolving more, where there is a good level of standardization when it comes to creating new plans. And there are goals that our customers have taken up to launch so many different EV models. So suppliers also following suit from that perspective to support that kind of a scale. So that's one. And our role as technology providers, AWS and others, so it's on us to kind of make the services easy enough to use so that customers can think about ROI and benefits that needs to come out of it. So for example, last week I was in Vegas where this year's reInvent happened. And based on our work with customers, we launched our IoT services now is compatible with MQTT v5. So that's a requirement that our customers wanted. And our customers ask us, we are helping run Amazon as a business. So AWS is supporting the infrastructure and AI ML capabilities of Amazon. So how does that apply to automotive world? So last week we launched a new product called AWS Supply Chain, which kind of talks about us leveraging our expertise from Amazon, running a business as Amazon, and also our expertise in helping other automotive customers in the supply chain side of things and sustainability side of things, kind of bringing all that together into a product that can be quickly deployed for our customers. So technology providers will kind of keep looking at those aspects of things. The third part slipped. It will come back to me, but I will come back.
No worries, no worries. Tim, maybe I can bring you back into that. Anything you wanted to add to that, including maybe on the, we're looking at the shop floor, there's new skills as well that I'm sure required. So just wanted to turn to your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, so from a shop floor perspective, it's definitely looking to the future. We're investing heavily in ways that we can make our whole process more streamlined. So be it from the Wild Zero perspective, where we're looking at potentially ways that we can carry out our non-destructive and destructive testing in a better way. And it's just trying to predict the future is difficult, and trying to get the right balance of what we need.
Absolutely. We're just about out of time for this session. I'll just ask each of the panelists, technology sector data is very exciting. What's really motivating and exciting you most as you look ahead now? I mean, obviously, it's, as we talked about, it's a challenging time, but there's a lot happening. I'm just leaving the audience with some thoughts about what's really motivating you. I'll start with you, Rudiger.
I think the management challenge about it, it's absolutely fascinating. I come from a technical background. Many of the problems I face are just non-technical. And I'm absolutely convinced what we do is right. It's that element of driving that change, pushing that change constantly over years, if you wish. And I think we're just way too use case driven, like probably many businesses are. And it's the potential in moving out of the use case challenge, more into an architectural challenge and substantially changing the business. That's motivating me. So it's a business development process, really. And I think that's really super interesting. And you get to talk to really clever people and people that really want to change things. And that's really, yeah, that drives me personally. And obviously, in the long term, I think for Germany especially, it's very important that we're really good at that, because it's a labor, I would say, labor-focused market. Let's put it that way. And we need to do something about it. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to produce in Germany. So I'm German, so I want to help that.
Yeah. Yeah, high stakes indeed. Kartik, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, it's these are exciting times when all customers, exciting at least from a perspective of new technologies entering into automotive industry, and how automotive industry generally has been a slow industry, but there's so many changes that are happening right now, which is pushing our OEMs, suppliers, dealerships, everyone towards thinking about new technology, how to adopt and how to move towards new possibilities. So for me, that's what drives me. And if I'm able to sit with a customer, try to explain to them how, in a non-technical way, all these things can help them achieve a result that they're trying to achieve, I think I'm really glad doing that. And I think that's what keeps me going.
Tim, besides your prediction for the quarterfinals, tell us about what's really motivating you in the, as you look to the future now.
It's about people. So it's getting the people on the shop floor and around the business involved. They're the future of the business. They're the ones that are going to come up with the ideas. And the more people we can get involved, the better. So we've been transitioning a lot of people, upskilling them to give them opportunities they wouldn't normally have, and they're thriving at it. And it's given us reaping the benefits tenfold on investing in them.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground there in a short time. We still have a lot more to discuss when we get into the details, of course, of really developing a data-driven production culture. But I hope that this was a good start, if you like, to the discussion of the event, because I think that's a key theme we'll pick up on. A lot more to talk about offline. But I want to thank each of our panelists for starting us in such a great way. Tim connecting from Oxford, Rudiger here, and Kartik. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.